line up with the weather conditions every single time. And the fact that you see the trails first and then you see the cloud cover, that's easy to explain, because the trails only form when these conditions exist where the haze.
Well, so they'll be doing these crisscross patterns, right? And then the fucking trail stays in the air and then it expands. But at the same time, there'll be planes going by, leaving a little trail, and it disappears. But I don't know what elevation each plane is at, so I don't fucking know.
Yeah, that's what makes the difference, because you'll see some where you'll see two planes in the sky at once. The one closer to you is leaving a trail, and the one higher up is not, or vice versa. And this is all explained when you look at a cross section of the altitudes and what the temperature is, what the humidity is. That's it, because it's just a question of, is the hot air going to do something that's going to persist, or is it not? It really depends on these factors external to the airplane.
Hey, but when I was younger, I would look up in the sky a lot more than I do now. I would look at clouds and shit and planes. But now, I don't really look up in the sky now. But when I do, every once in a while, I'll see the fucking crisscrossing planes. When I was younger, that shit never happened. We had sky riders. They have those planes and they would make letters in the sky, but we never really had that crisscrossing pattern shit in like the 80s and the 90s. That's like started sometime in the 2000s, it seemed like. But maybe I'm tripping. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like some people say they remember the sun was yellow. Well, sure. All the cartoons,
it depends on what time of day.
Yeah, exactly.
In the morning, it could be all types of colors, and then at sunset. But during the day, it's more whitish. Anyway, out here,
Right. Well, every question that has been raised has been answered. And this is my main problem with this whole conversation, with this debate, is that the pro-chemtrail side remains steadfastly ignorant about the explanations for all the points that they raise. Like, why is there crisscross flight paths? Why does it break up? Well, you have to remember that the air, it's clear. We can't really see what's happening, but it's a very fluid environment. It's actually kind of chaotic. There's explanations for why you'll see a trail stop and start. It's not the pilot turning a switch on and off. These are things external to them.
Yeah, but I haven't spent a lot of time on it, dude, because it's just, you see it all the time and nothing, it's like, I don't worry about it, my life's going on, like, it hasn't affected me.
Well, I'm glad you're not worried about it, because worrying about these things is as bad as, worrying about planet killer asteroids. This is what I'm saying. It's the bandwidth they get you to take up. And yeah, Copacetic says 2025, we're still debating it. Exactly. Well, the only reason I bring this up is to filter out people. If you could still be fooled by an appeal to motive fallacy, if you can still be tricked by a loaded question, or you're still fooling yourself with faulty causality, then you're not ready for the level of media skepticism we apply.
You know who I first heard this from, though, back in the day in the late 90s? It was on Art Bell. Was the first time I ever heard of chemtrails was Art fucking Bell.
Yeah,
probably Art like Bell, 96 or 97, somewhere in there.
Art Bell and Whitney Strieber, the guy who put out the ideas of being probed by aliens, they wrote the first book on climate change disaster. It was like
The Quickening or the Superstorm?
The Superstorm. Well, the whole alien thing was being promoted by the Air Force for very specific reasons, the mythology of it. Yeah. Same people. So I just think these are very questionable things.
Yeah. Going way back, it was the Air Force, right? Lieutenant Keyhole. And then you had the Face on Mars guy. It's always ex-military. It's always, like Roswell was that one general that showed it to Jesse Marcel, and then he showed it to his son, the wreckage, of Roswell. Yes. And it's all mythology, man. It's all bullshit when you review it. When you look at those old 70s UFO fucking movies, it's all cheesy. It's like really bad. I don't know.
Well, last December, did you see the drone panic in New Jersey?
Yeah. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I just thought it's whatever.
The fact is, it explains how people can believe in UFOs, because you had all these people freaking out about drones, and then someone did their homework and they said, no, every single one of these sightings corresponds to a flight, and they identified every single one. And it turns out that at the end of it, despite thousands of people claiming that they saw drones, there were zero. Not one could be verified.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
anyway, I'll be addressing some of these questions. I mean, look, I did a quick search here, just to the crisscross thing. It says these are due to established paths of the aircraft. Like the simplest explanation usually suffices. What's more likely, they're making it rain, which isn't that bad, or they are taking flight paths that explain the crisscross pattern. And yes, these flight paths do correspond. That's, again, it's already been debunked.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you bringing these things up, because these questions need to be brought up because we're exposing a psyop, in my opinion. We're exposing a psyop, and by breaking this psyop down, we can get people to break their trust with their alt media sources, because this is mainstream alternative media claptrap. Everybody in alt media, from Alex Jones promotes this stuff. I don't drink the Kool-Aid at Alex Jonestown, and this is standard fare Alex Jones stuff.
What do you think about the fires that were out here in the Palisades and shit in El Tadino?
Controlled opposition. I'm sorry, controlled demolition. I think these are inorganic, some kind of. I mean, they have these evacuation.
In El Tadino, they never turned the power off. They were saying like a bunch of people are suing the SoCal Edison because they never turned the power off while the shit was burning. And supposedly that accelerates the fire or some shit.
Yeah, I got the feeling controlled demolition, and there's a ton of stuff in media that was kind of foreshadowing it, and I'm like, okay, this has got to be contrived. I'd like to know more about the extent of it, but I think it's controlled demo, like 9/11.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate the call, and call back anytime.
All right. Peace.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. That was Challenger Hoax. Going through your comments, okay, Steve says not all of them are identifiable. Some don't appear on flight radar. Okay, now you don't have any evidence of unidentified aircraft dropping chemical toxins into the atmosphere. You don't. You're just claiming it. You don't have any evidence. If I saw an unmarked plane leaving chemicals in the air, I would call the National Guard. These are all like almost like it's like you guys have a list, a bullet point list. If they don't believe in chemtrails, say this, say this, say this. And it's always the same things. Oh, you just think the government doesn't want to do experiments on us. Or, oh, you just, they always kind of throw it back at you. Or they throw in other stuff. In this case, they're using secret aircraft. Okay, well, where are the secret aircraft? Where are these unmarked planes? Everything is tracked. So that's a tall claim. That's a huge claim. If you're going to say that the bad trails are left by secret government planes, now you're just into ufology. You might as well say UFOs. Oh yeah, there's Bigfoot on a unicorn, and it's just going across the stratosphere, marking its territory. And that's what we're breathing in. Because you're going into the area of ufology, you just basically hearsay, say. Like, no, you can't say I saw. Oh, look, I followed them on flight radar, Tim. No, I used to have people call in and they would say, I saw these planes leaving lines and I checked on my app and they weren't there. And then it rained. Like, you got your script down. You have your script, this idea of how these things work. Like, some people could sell you a convincing story of being abducted by aliens. You got the script. But no, you've never seen lines in the sky turn into rain. And you've never checked an app and saw unidentified planes. You're just fibbing. You're making it up. And if you're going to make this stuff up, why should we believe anything that you say? You never tracked a plane or tried to, only to find it wasn't there. Like, wait a minute, guys. That trail. Let me check and see. Wait, that plane's not on here. No, you've never done that. Come on. You even said earlier you're not a chemtrail activist. Truthford says, why didn't you make a video showing your evidence? Exactly. Show your evidence, or you can't really enter the debate. Girl says, Big Pharma is all about experimenting on the entire herd. What if they're like, I don't know, I've posited this before because people have said things like, oh yeah, they're putting baby meat in McDonald's and everything's toxic. And I'm like, what if they aren't doing that? Because based on what I've seen, sometimes I think they're putting life extension in the Big Macs. Like, what if they want you to live a long time so you can shop more, spend more? Hey, Bobby Johnson, as far as I'm concerned, you know, you're saying here Tim knows what you've seen better than you. Yeah. What I'm saying, if you're claiming that you saw UFOs, I'm saying no, you didn't. If you're claiming you saw something that doesn't exist, I can say you did not. There's Hitchens razor, very useful. I would say get one. Hitchens razor says that which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And now he's calling me names. Tim has become an a-hole over this. Look, I'm sorry, but I'm just banning you. I don't need activists from mainstream media guardrail issues. Sorry. Bobby Johnson has been banned simply because this is not your place. You should be over in Alex Jonestown, maybe hitting the Q pipe, talking about 5G towers and chemtrails, MK Ultra and false flags and revelation of the method. Like, we're way past this stuff. We're not buying your fear. We don't have any need for it. We've diagnosed it. So you're not going to have any takers here. If you're going to push chemtrail phobia, go somewhere where you'll have a receptive audience. Well, yeah, the Q pipe thing. It's like you might as well go hit the Q pipe and talk about how JFK is going to fight the deep state and how Hillary Clinton's going to be executed at Guantanamo. That's where these people are at. Additives to jet fuels. It's still a quantity thing. But look, if nothing else has made you think about this, David Paul, what about this? When you look at these trails, think about the volume. How many miles, how big, how much quantity of a substance would be required to create that trail? And what's a better explanation? That this was sprayed out of an airplane, or this is a natural result of very hot air at very high altitudes? I mean, anyway, the facts are on my side. You can investigate them whether or not. Steve says, Tim, I'm personally not upset at you. I'm just talking about my observations, not trying to push them. Well, your observations are worthless if they're not attended by metadata and any follow-up or correlation with the flight paths. So your observations aren't rigorous enough to be considered here. It's like, I saw a light in the sky. It might have been a UFO. When was it? A few weeks ago. No, that's dismissible. Hitchens razor, get rid of it. I wouldn't bring that to you. I wouldn't waste your time with, yeah, I saw a light in the sky. I don't remember where I was. And people with the ISS do this all the time. They're like, yeah, I saw the space station, so it's real. Where were you? What was your latitude and what was your latitude, your longitude? What time was it? I don't remember. Okay, so you remember a light in the sky, but you don't remember where you were, when you were, and where you were looking. It sounds exactly like UFO abductees. Like, I just woke up in the middle of the field naked, but the last thing I remember was there was a light in the sky. So are you sure you weren't abducted by the ISS? David Polk says, does hot air at high altitude expand? If so, you're correct. Yeah, this is what I would suggest. Look into contrails. Anytime you're going to try to debunk an established explanation, you can't just provide an alternative without dealing with what was. The status quo matters in this instance. Braveheart says, you can tell there's deadly radiation in the air by dragging your feet across the carpet, and if you can shock someone, leave the area immediately. Well, let's continue. Look, we've killed chemtrails. We've killed the Mandela effect. We killed JFK Jr. What conspiracy theory out there have we not? What guardrail have we not already taken down? The person that called, Steve, was Challenger Hoax. I have his channel linked on one of the podcasts, maybe a couple days ago. Not hard to find. If he's here in chat, he can post his link. But anyway, Hitchens razor, anything that's not presented with evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Like, I don't need to counter your claim with evidence if your claim doesn't have evidence. I can just dismiss it. It's not polite, but the reason why I let that Bobby guy go for a minute was so you could see what the believers are like. The believers have no information. They attack the non-believer. They use shame tactics. He attacks my character. He attacks my intellect. He suggests that I'm dumb, I'm rude, I'm all these bad things because I don't believe in this crap. But I'm saying, no, you're actually part of the Psywar. If anybody has the moral and intellectual low ground, it's them. What's up, Lord Laney? Says oh yeah. Well, look, all you've missed so far is our conversation about the chemtrail psyop, and it's a psyop. Copaesthetic says they should film the planes, contrails in real time and selfie themselves with their masks on while spraying vinegar at the sky. Yeah, at a minimum. Like I said, if I believed in it, I would be taking pictures of it. I'd be putting timestamps. I'd be identifying. I'd say, okay, look, this was Delta Airlines, and they did that. And I would call them. Anyway, if a lot of the chemtrail believers paid me, I would be your champion. Like, I don't believe it, but if you put 5 or 10K into my pocket, I would dedicate a full month to nonstop chemtrail activism. I would shill for you, since you can't do it for yourselves. Since you won't stand up for yourselves and defend yourselves against this threat that only you believe in, I'll champion it for you. But I need some kind of incentive. It's funny that, you're like, I believe that the airplanes are spraying poisons on my pet, on my children, on my house, on my face, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I just don't. And I would call them. Anyway, if a lot of the chemtrail believers paid me, I would be your champion. Like, I don't believe it, but if you put 5 or 10K into my pocket, I would dedicate a full month to nonstop chemtrail activism. I would shill for you, since you can't do it for yourselves. Since you won't stand up for yourselves and defend yourselves against this threat that only you believe in, I'll champion it for you. But I need some kind of incentive. It's funny that, you're like, I believe that the airplanes are spraying poisons on my pet, on my children, on my house, on my face, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I just don't understand where you're coming from. What's it going to take to make you get active? All right, let's move on. Any more dead horses to kick around? Richie from Boston says, how much longer are you going to wait? I've been warning you for a reason. Citibank goes out. Your money goes out. It's all going to be gone. Turn your fiat money into gold and silver at richielikesgold.com. So Richie from Boston is now hyping up blackouts because there was just a blackout so he can sell some gold. I like Richie from Boston. I used to think he was hardcore because he has that gravelly voice, vocal fry. He sounds like somebody who spent so much time podcasting about chemtrails, just out there in the field, always breathing this stuff in. I thought his voice got gritty because of it. Like, there's Richie out there driving across the country, documenting the chemtrails. I actually believed that for the longest time, that he was documenting chemtrails and that he was onto something, and that his voice was just proof of that. That's what happens when you're truthing so hard. Like Alex Jones. His voice sounds like someone who's been at war for years in the bunker. Just gravelly, gravitas, oozing gravitas. But no, Richie from Boston is here pitching gold before they turn the lights out. One of my favorite episodes was April Fool's Day 2020. Richie said, on April Fool's Day, they're going to pull the plug. They're going to cut off the internet. They're going to take me in a black car, and you'll never hear from me again. but you can buy my storable food items at richiefromlovestorablefooditems.com. And I'm like, wait, they're going to shut down the internet. So how are they going to deliver the food to my house after you've been taken by the deep state for truthing so hard? So these doomsday profiteers are just grifting. Lean Dion says Regina from Boston. Oh, Regina from Boston is actually Richie's. Is Regina from Austin. And her thing was, I think she was selling jet fuel in order to burn down 5G towers. And she said the jet fuel will cause the 5G tower to melt and fall into its own footprint at free fall speed. His cousin from Austin. She's just grifting. Lean Dion says Regina from Boston. Oh, Regina from Boston is actually Richie's. Is Regina from Austin. And her thing was, I think she was selling jet fuel in order to burn down 5G towers. And she said the jet fuel will cause the 5G tower to melt and fall into its own footprint at free fall speed. His cousin from Austin. Bach Precision says the WWE Macho Man voice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Richie from Boston, the chemtrail huffer. He's in his Jeep. The windows are rolled up, and he's just all gravelly about the chemtrails up there. And then he's hitting his vape, and he's puffing. And I'm like, okay, what's worse, hot boxing a Jeep with vape juice 24/7, or the chemtrails 30,000 feet above your head? The first person who tried to convince me to be afraid of chemtrails was smoking Camel Wides. And I looked at the Camel Wides, I looked at the trail, and at the time, I didn't know. So I thought, okay, they're being poisoned, but I guess we're being poisoned here and there. And so what's the big deal? We're all going to die. I became very pessimistic. I believed all the climate change, end of the world, that man was just essentially in self-destruct mode. I believed all that stuff. I almost kind of hoped for it. Like the planet killer asteroid, the zombie movie scenarios. I saw those as I hope this happens. Like, I hope that we have something like this, because for some reason I thought it was somehow justifiable. I think I had a lot of internalized misanthropy. But then I started to unpack how this thing works, and I realized, okay, it's all based on fear, paranoia, insecurity. And eventually I unplugged, where now I don't hate mankind, and I don't think that a planet killer asteroid's a good thing. And I don't even believe in them. I don't believe in nukes. I don't believe in weapons of mass destruction. Girl says, if you own a big freezer with no backup generator, then the prospect of rolling blackouts or brownouts is scary. Yeah, I read this pretty bad book. It's called, I almost shouldn't say it, Contingency Cannibalism, Super Hardcore Survival Tactics. I mean, this book has recipes, but it just describes, what happens if things really go down? Who's going to make it? And who's not going to make it? The people with storable food. Because the looters, the cannibal bandits, are going to come to your house. Your neighbors who know that you have storable food item, when they're starving, they're going to go to your house. So if you're storing anything, you're going to be a target. It even suggested that there is a point where if you recognize it's going this direction, you're better off just forming a band of cannibals. And if anybody is opposed to it, they try to stop you, they come to your house, just consider it free meat delivery. I mean, the book is brutal, and it gives various examples of cannibalism throughout history. I don't know how exaggerated it is, but it makes me think of Alex Jones talking about it. 6 weeks into lockdown, he talked about how he's been staring at his neighbors, thinking about how he's going to string them up and butcher their meat for his daughters. Like, that only took 6 weeks of lockdown. We hadn't even run out of new Netflix to watch, and Jones is already talking about cannibalism. Girl says Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos think they can block the sun. I don't know about that. I mean, this is old stale, decades old conspiracy claptrap. But the idea of geoengineering is that climate change is so bad, or global warming so bad, that we have to mitigate it. So geoengineering are mostly hypotheticals. Like, if we need to block the sun, we could do stratospheric injection and maybe mitigate climate change. But these are only hypothetical situations that presuppose climate change actually exists. So it's not even a real thing. It's a hypothetical situation that if it were this bad, we would do this. And I don't even believe it. They claim that the day after September the 11th, since all the planes were grounded, that the Earth was a little bit cooler because the condensation trails were not causing us to trap heat. So that is interesting in itself, because you can see that the long game was eventually the environmentalists are going to say contrails are bad for the climate. So now they're on the same page as the chemtrail people. Like, now they're both mad at airplanes and those trails. One group thinks, hey, it's climate changing us. The other group says it's geoengineering us. So it's just notable here that you have wherever you have points of agreement on opposite sides of the political spectrum, if you're on the political horseshoe and you agree with the other side, you just blame them for it. You're mind controlled. Copaesthetic says Tucker Carlson was pushing the sun thing. Yeah, Alex Jones loves chemtrail theory. Tucker Carlson is a survivor of an alien attack. It scratched his back when he was in bed, and he's got scars to prove it. Just like Jim Caviezel has a 14-inch scar for where he got hit by a scourge when he was playing Jesus, and they accidentally hit him. So they got scars to prove it. You can trust Tucker Carlson when he says that Bill Gates is going to block the sun. Oh yeah, that's 100% believable. This blocking the sun stuff is a joke. Look, another thing too, bad billionaires. Elon Musk, he's our savior. And he's going to save free speech. He's going to save us from everything by taking us to Mars. So Elon Musk is a savior if you're on the right. If you're on the left, he's a Nazi. He's the fourth branch of government, and he's going to kill us all. So is he a villain or is he a savior? He's both. Depends on where you are on the spectrum. Bill Gates. Oh, Bill Gates is a depopulationist. He's going to kill us all, and he's going to block the sun. But only if you're on the right wing. If you're on the left, he's a savior, and he saved mankind. He's a philanthropist. So which is it? Is he a villain or a savior? So you got these billionaire villains who are saviors to the other side. Again, bifurcation. If it's split like that and you're falling into it, you're in their Hegelian dialectic. You're in their rigged game. And if you're in their rigged game, you're a believer. And this, like, look, the pro is the white, the anti is the black. You got to be anti-pro, anti-anti. So why is it that your supervillain is the other person's savior and vice versa? Can they be both? 33 years old says, do you think the chemtrail theory is supported by more evidence than the gang stalking theory? There's no evidence for chemtrails. Look, I will send you $10 PayPal. And right now, that's actually a lot of money for me because everything I get, I invest into this. But I will give you $10 for evidence of a chemtrail. No questions asked. Just show me the evidence and I'll send you the money. And this is in perpetuity. As long as I have this channel, I will pay for chemtrail evidence. Screw it. $20. I'll just give you $20 every time you send me evidence of chemtrails. You can only take advantage of this offer once a week, but I'll pay as many people as can provide me evidence of chemtrails. And I won't be like Dearth, refusing to pay out the prize money when I'm debunked or if I'm debunked. Am I taking callers? Yeah, I'll take callers. Sure. Let's go ahead because we're talking about a lot of different things. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything else. Let me bring this up really quick because we talked about the Q pipes. So Jim Caviezel. Let's talk about Jim Caviezel for a moment. He played Tim Ballard in Sound of freedom. Tim Ballard, the human trafficker, ironically, a literal human trafficker being charged for it, a groomer, an abuser of women, terrible guy. I think he's been kicked out of the Mormon church, but Tim Ballard claimed to be related to one of the Mormon founders. He was fighting human trafficking, or performatively. He was just basically faking it. But anyway, Jim Caviezel, I spell with a Q, Jim Caviezel, but JC, he goes back a little ways. He played Jesus in Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. And he told Mel, he said, "Hey, Mel, my initials are JC and I'm 33. I'm perfect for the role." And Mel Gibson hired him. So he's 33. They record Passion of the Christ. He gets whipped by a scourge. He has a 14-inch scar. He got an injury when a cross fell on him and caused him to bite part of his cheek. And then on the 5th take of Sermon on the Mount, he was struck by lightning and he died. And then he rose from the dead. They resurrected him. He had to get surgery. He's got lung problems, but Jim Caviezel as Jesus was struck by lightning, if you believe all this hype. But then after this, he goes to go film Count of Monte Cristo. So the Count of Monte Cristo is about a character named Edmond Dante, who is falsely imprisoned for 16 years. And he gets out of it. He breaks out of this tomb, this dungeon, at the age of 33. And I found this to be interesting for a few reasons. But the Count of Monte Cristo seems to be the basis for like the masked vigilante with a lot of money, the Batman archetype. But what's more, there's this idea of him going into this underworld and then coming out. Like, you know, and 33, like Jesus in the tomb comes out 33 after he rises from the dead. And I kind of connected this to the Divine Comedy because the main character's name is Dante and he goes to hell and he comes back out. And it's halfway through, it's midway through his life's journey. Most scholars will say 35 because the Bible says 70 is a lifespan. But I don't know, 33, 35, whatever. The point of it is the story of this character going into the underworld and then emerging. And this also ties into the idea of the harrowing, where Christ goes to hell for 3 days and comes out. It's part of the Apocrypha. But this Jim Caviezel character is going to be in the resurrection of the Christ, is why I brought him up. He's going to be in the news again. But I'm just pointing out that JC, 33, Jesus Christ, Count of Monte Cristo, another 33-year-old, what is up with all this? And then you connect to it Mel Gibson, who also is connected to conspiracy theories, also in predictive programming for 9/11 in the Patriot, very specific stuff. And then he's also considered by the QAnoners to be one of theirs. So there's a bit of a QAnon mythology built around Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel. That's interesting. And then the fact that it goes back to all of this meta scripting where you can see how they are attached to a certain archetype. I believe there's a couple of other points about this, but we'll move on from there. But again, there's a new Mel Gibson. Here's the conversation that he had. Mel Gibson had a conversation with Jim Caviezel, and he said he was 33, his initials are JC, and Gibson said, "You're freaking me out." Another point, Tim Ballard claims that one of the trafficked victims gave him one of those, I think it's called a scapula, one of those little Catholic necklace things, and it has a pendant that says Tim or Timothy 611. So Timothy 611 for Tim Ballard. 611, of course, Timothy McVeigh executed 611. Branch Davidian, Waco is where he got motivated to become an extremist. 611 p.m. is when Donald Trump was shot. We've talked about the 611 stuff and how it's infused throughout the right wing. Richie from Boston used to always talk about it. He would say, "Put on the full armor of God," Ephesians 6:11. So 6:11 has been bandied around the right for a long time. So for this latest Jim Caviezel movie, to have 611 a part of it is really, I guess, on brand. Let me read through these comments that somebody left on my YouTube channel, and then I'll open up the phones. All right, let's see. Let's go. Said, oh, you're call. Oh, yeah. Tim calling Austin Metcalf. Yeah, I was mispronouncing it. It's Austin Metcalf. And Metcalf, maybe it has some connotations to, I don't know, sacrifice or something. He says, I'm glad. Okay, yes. There's already a show on Hulu about the Pope. Okay, I've seen the Conclave suddenly advertised like crazy all over Amazon. It looks very boring. Like I should probably watch it and do my homework, but I couldn't get motivated to watch it. Stranger Days says, LeoFriend sounds just like Calcified Lies, subdued Calcified Lies. If that's true, it would be awesome. Calcified Lies is a great channel, but I don't think it's the same person. Dwayne Garrett says, it's weird how faceless accounts are more popular to watch it. Stranger Days says, LeoFriend sounds just like Calcified Lies, a subdued Calcified Lies. If that's true, it would be awesome. Calcified Lies is a great channel, but I don't think it's the same person. Dwayne Garrett says, it's weird how faceless accounts are more popular on the heels of AI channels. There was a big push a few years back to show the content creator's face. Yeah, that's the trend. Faceless channels are replacing everything. A lot of people are taking advantage of AI and getting into content creation, affiliate marketing, in areas that they might have been barred from because they didn't want to appear on camera, but that's no longer a barrier. It's just another area that's changed fundamentally. Let's see what else here. Rocco Calzone says, I heard Shia LaBeouf had a crisis actor school in an LA documentary out or out soon. Okay. Oh, he has an actor school, crisis actor school. Interesting. Haven't heard of that, but we mentioned him the other night. He was in Megalopolis. And he's got the birthday of 6/11, and he was crucified upside down in front of a $100 bill in that movie. And if you understand their symbolism, it all makes sense. Vanden says, the Seattle Supersonics NBA team retired their Space Needle logo in 2001. Dave Polk says, looks like some judge got pinched for harboring illegal gang members in your neck of the woods. That was in Las Cruces. Some judge had some gang member living with him and his wife, very questionable. Apparently he had pictures of severed heads on his phone. And look, I'm not a reality denialist. Like I talk about psyops and hoaxes, but the world exists, stuff happens. I've seen many examples of these things. I picked up gang killings when I was a decedent transporter. So like I'm not in denial of anything when it comes to what happens in the real world. But there's a distinction between the real world and the worldview as presented by media monolithically. There's a discrepancy. But if you point out the discrepancy, you're called a conspiracy theorist. All right. A couple of other things I want to catch up on. Going through evidence. And the difference between us and Trutherville is we've arrived at conclusions. You say, I don't know if this is poison or not. There seems to be a repeated theme in these psyops. So, yeah, interesting find there.
It provides the
suggested I was dumb. All kinds of alarmist rhetoric, as though I was endangering the tribe. Like, if we let this guy in and he sows doubt, we're not going to take precautions against this threat to the collective. That's what it comes down to. Beliefs are largely the ones that we discuss here. They're things that you are, I guess, partaking in because of the group you belong to. It's very culty, but it's a collective thing. And non-believers threaten the collective. And alternative media believers and mainstream believers are the same thing. What we are non-believers. And if you're not a non-believer, then you've taken some leap of faith. You've trusted a blue check. You trusted a mediation source that you think is valid, which means that you've outsourced your perception. You've compromised your reality. Well, Steve, when you say, like, I know you're not threatened by me necessarily, but you're challenged, I would say. Oh, yeah, I'll put the StreamYard link. And look, a couple things too. It's disingenuous to say that you believe in chemtrails, but you're not afraid of them. No, you're afraid of them. You can't tell me that you're not afraid of it. Sorry, but it's scary. How can you tell me that you're not afraid of it? Like, I'm not afraid of these toxins, these chemicals that are killing the plants, wiping out the human population and destroying the earth. No, you're scared of it. I'm not saying you're a coward, but it's like you should have a healthy fear. Like, I have rattlesnakes. So if chemtrails were real, I would be afraid of them.
arm. And that was the thing I wanted to tell you. Story is from Ancestry.
Afraid of them. Absolutely. If you can convince me that they're real, yeah, I'll be terrified. But I'm never paralyzed by fear like chemtrail believers are. They never act on it. Phones are open. What's up, Leo friend? Welcome to the chat.
Hey, Tim, what's up?
Just having another conversation about chemtrails, kicking another dead horse.
Well, I did want to, aside from kicking that dead horse, you had briefly mentioned Austin Metcalf's last name. From the definition from Ancestry.com, it said the Metcalf surname, and I included this in my article about him. It says it means a calf to be fattened up for eating. So that's the etymology of that last name, which is curious, right? And there's so much weirdness surrounding that story. His killer's name matching the famous basketball player Carmelo Anthony with a K instead of a C. And on the same day of the stabbing, the basketball player was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And there's just, his final, Austin Metcalf's final tweet was, if I pull it up right here, his final tweet is just so theatrical. It says, faith that God has got me, heart emoji, and my work will pay off.
Right. And he got stabbed in the heart, right?
Yes. Oh, yes, he did. And he died in his twin brother's arm. And that was the thing I wanted to tell you, why I wanted to call in. I was having this thought about how you were mentioning these world stage characters are heroes to some, and then also villains to heroes to the right, villains to the left, vice versa. That's where I think the twin angle could come in, because I was really thinking about Donald Trump. He is a Gemini from his birthday on the world stage, at least his world stage birthday, and the astrological belief system. He's a Gemini, he's a twin. And I noticed this with my Spike Lee Metascript breakdown. Adam Driver played the character that was kind of a Trump proxy in that film, Black Klansman. And it's like there's two sides of Trump, right? So one side, the left thinks he's like Adolf Hitler, just destroying everything, fascist, whatever. But to the religious right, to the evangelical right, he's actually going to save Israel. There's so many false prophecies I've been studying from these YouTubers that say he's going to rebuild the temple, the third temple in Jerusalem. He's beloved by people who have a false view of the Bible, that the Jewish people, the Jewish ethnic race is like God's chosen people. So he's both a hero and a villain simultaneously.
Okay, this is interesting because Jordan Peele had brought this up. There was a discussion with, and not just him, but the director of that vampire movie Sinners, and that was compared to some of Jordan Peele's work. But they talk about how it dealt with the doppelganger or the double, and this is a consistent theme that has been brought up in these movies. So that movie has Michael B. Jordan playing his own twin, and of course he dies in it. Well, the twin dies holding the other twin, just like the stabbing. But the connection here with that movie and that psyop is the twin thing, the stabbing scene in particular, but also the general context of the race war narrative they've imposed over that particular psyop. But the twin thing was brought up by the director, and Jordan Peele talks about it quite a lot. And it all does relate to the duality expressed in the vampire, who has a nice face, personable, charismatic, but once you invite them in, they suck your blood. The idea of this duality, dual characters, seems to be a repeated theme in these psyops. So, yeah, interesting find there.
It provides the backdrop for the debate that doesn't include media fakery in it. So people are saying Austin Metcalf is a tragic victim of racial violence, and then there the other side that thinks, no, it was an altercation, and people like him, deserve it. That's what the left is saying. That's why they gave Carmelo Anthony all that money, and the right is saying this is just one example of racial hatred. So these two parallel running narratives where they're both fighting, but none of them will ever examine it being a completely staged event with a crisis actor dad and interacting with other world stage crisis actors like Jake Lang. They'll never get to that perspective because they're too focused on these the twin view of Austin Metcalf, who does literally have a twin, right, in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole thing seems to be building up towards activism. I'm seeing it on the left and right. The right is saying, this is our Trayvon Martin, White Lives Matter, we should be marching against this. And the left is saying, if the alleged killer is not let go because it was self-defense, then there's going to be riots. So I've seen calls for an uprising there. And then I was listening to some Daily Beast leftist podcasts, and there's a lot of agitation calling for massive protests. And we're about to hit May Day. That's a couple days from now. Beltane, high point on the pagan calendar, the witches' Sabbats. This is the high point. It's not Halloween. It's the May Day, the complete opposite side of the year. And this is generally when things heat up. So I'm expecting some kind of leftist uprising, just like from the Madness, extreme Antifa type action. But this thing with Metcalf seems to be the catalyst. They may use this as a catalyst because it works both ways. Just like with Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely, it's all part of the same buildup.
And I find what's amazing is how they legitimize these kinds of psyops by introducing a media blackout. I noticed that was a common talking point among those who support Austin Metcalf and think he's a victim. They're saying, notice our liberal media isn't talking about this at all. That was even in some of the responses of his final tweet. And yeah, that's it's like the censored narrative. Doesn't Alex Jones say, I'm the most censored man on the internet and stuff? It's like you can sprinkle legitimacy onto a psyop or a world stage character by introducing these kind of narratives that it's you can't talk about this is censored, while everyone is also talking about it at the same time.
Now, did you hear what Alex Jones said to Tucker Carlson? Or Tucker Carlson said, I'm going to make a prediction that there's going to be a false flag fighting racism, implying that some BLM type is going to shoot up the Patriot Front. And one of the end scenes in Sinners is the protagonist shoots up the Klan, kills the Grand Dragon. So I'm like, wait a minute here. The movie, which is paralleling this psyop in several ways, ends where they're killing a bunch of, I guess, Klansmen. And of course, what Tucker Carlson was saying is that, yeah, there's going to be some false flag that is going to be used to justify censoring free speech because it will have caused this whole thing to have risen up in the first place. And they suggested Patriot Front. And when I say left-right uprising, someone says LOL. Well, after the Madness, I said, expect a class warfare framed uprising from the left against CEOs, against the rich. And what have we seen? We have seen not just threats against Musk and Trump, the Cybertruck thing against the tower. How many attacks have there been? How many Tesla headquarters have been firebombed? How many cars have been scratched? So when I'm saying that there's a leftist uprising, I'm basing it off of Netflix, the prediction there, and what we have seen. And then you combine this with their own rhetoric and talk and their organizing. And yeah, obviously, what was that, 50 protests, that 51 movement? So like, where am I wrong here?
Well, more importantly, it's about the world stage. I don't think you're suggesting there's going to be a literal leftist uprising, just like as I would suggest there would never be a literal or right uprising. That's why I always found the Civil War narrative absolutely ridiculous. What are Americans on their scooters, like, mobility scooters, going to be getting ready for fighting a civil war in the 21st century? It just seems absolutely ridiculous. But nevertheless, they can still manifest something like that on the screens and generate the reaction as if it had occurred. And that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here.
Let me add something here, because he says it's not an uprising. Well, maybe you're just getting into semantics here, because we have a movement that has arisen over this idea that it's justifiable to kill a CEO, that he's the oppressor. The class warfare thing has been thrown into it. Luigi is a symbol of this, and this uprising against Musk and Trump. Maybe the word's not uprising, protests, but I mean, the word is accurate as far as it's a political blowback, and it's concerted. They had 50 different state capitals with protesters. So uprising means protesters getting in the street, making noise. I'm not saying insurrection, but what I'm saying is that no, it has been consistent. If you're saying there isn't leftist activist activity and hasn't been for months now, then you haven't been paying attention. I've been following this stuff very closely, and right now there are organizers right now preparing, because they see this as the weakest point in the encroaching autocracy. And if they don't put Trump and the administration in its place now, it's not going to happen. So this is just leftist rhetoric, and it's consistent with what we're seeing in all of the predictive programming, and it's nuanced. I mean, this is not like broad strokes.
Yeah, and you brought up Sinners. That movie is very much tailored for more leftist views, right? It literally paints the white race as vampires, right? But concurrently released, The Monkey, I saw that kind of as a right-wing coded film. It's not overtly right-wing, but it does have a bit of subconscious racial agitation, because the story of it is that when you wind up that cursed monkey toy, it causes a stochastic violent death to just someone, right? And the dad, the main character, his son is adopted. Like basically his wife divorces him, and she marries Elijah Wood, and Elijah Wood is seen as just this absolutely annoying guy. And he published books on Christianity, like Jesus's dad. And there's this subtle like cucking narrative, like he's letting his son go with him. And it's fascinating that in the Austin Metcalf story, there was a serious discussion about people questioning the legitimacy of Christianity because the dad, being Christian, immediately forgave. He's like, I forgive Carmelo Anthony. If anything, I feel sympathy for what he did for killing my son. Right? Like what? It's just It's very bizarre.
Jake Lang highlighted this. Jake Lang called him weak, and so I saw this story emerging, and then I realized, wait, Jake Lang is a major January 6er. So he's a Fed. He's an actor. So now you got a provocateur, a Fed, an actor, one of the leading January 6th insurrectionists. Now he's the face of the PSYOP regarding Austin Metcalf as it's being sold to the right wing. Like, hey, look, you should be outraged about this death. Let this be your martyr. Let Austin be your Trayvon Martin and rise up. And so this instigator being connected to J6 tells you that the whole thing is fake. And so given that, now its connections with that movie are even more relevant.
And it's Caucasian twins that are the main characters of that movie. Hal and I forgot the other guy's name, right? And just like in Sinners, his twin brother doesn't die in his arms, but he dies in front of him. And there are these swords that fall down in this elaborate, like Rube Goldberg trap machine thing that leads to a cannonball getting shot in his face. But before it shows these swords very clearly, quickly spliced and falling down, and then he gets shot. And he dies right in front of them, right? So we have two movies, okay, about twins where their other half dies in front of them, running parallel to this highly racially motivated PSYOP, where a twin died in the arms of their other twin brother. Yeah, it's just consistent.
Okay, so Jordan Peele talks about the twins, the double, the doppelganger. It's a recurring theme in all his movies. He said Nope was inspired by the George Floyd spectacle. And what was the main thing about the George Floyd thing? Twins. Twin cities. His twin, Steven Jackson, was center stage at the very beginning. And then there are numerous connections between that Twin Cities event and the Twin Tower event. When you get into the symbolism of Twin Towers being hit at 8:46, George Floyd, Twin Cities being kneeled on for 8:46, the sun set on that day, which is Memorial Day 2020, in the Twin Cities at 8:46. So the twin theme was a huge part of that as well. And this is a big part of Jordan Peele's work, from Nope to Get Out. So there's, again, it's matching what we're seeing on the world stage. This
and
twin
most
theme.
and most importantly, in real events, in real altercations or real scuffles, right? Like these kinds of alignments aren't there. So it's kind of ridiculous when people claim, oh, you just call everything fake. It's like, no, you think these stories are everything. That's that's the way they need to really understand. It's like we're not saying all news is fake, just the big ones that you are so emotionally invested in. Those are fake, but that doesn't mean that's everything. So whenever I hear someone say you just call everything fake, I'm like, man, you're starting to think all these scary stories you're being told by the news are everything.
Yeah, I can't even get that far with people. I don't even try, but I don't have anybody in my personal life that even watches the news. Like they literally are just default believers in mainstream. And that's how it works. Mainstream mediation requires zero effort. They're low information believers. And low information belief is not as heavy as informed disbelief, which is all I advocate. Informed disbelief. I don't believe in chemtrails because I'm informed about condensation trails. Whereas you believe in chemtrail believers, because you have very little information. And for you, it's a question. Now, it's not a valid question, but you're a low information believer. You believe it for very little reasons. And that's the mainstreamer. So mainstream belief is very shallow by design, low effort.
Well, I think an important point is that even if you don't watch the news, these narratives do like percolate through social media and other avenues. And to be clear, so everyone's wondering, I do not talk about this kind of stuff in meat space. This is only in cyberspace with my online friends. It's pretty funny. I've even thought about this concept that we're all twins in a way, that our online self, our online activity can be, may perhaps discuss things that you wouldn't discuss in real life. And I think what we're headed towards with the Disease X isn't necessarily censorship of the internet. Well, I'll explain in a moment. It's leading for a total unity of all activity will be identified to who you are, a biometric association with your IP address. So basically, you notice this right now with like Amazon and other places. They're always encouraging, oh, you should generate a cryptographic biofingerprint so that you don't need to type a password. Just do this. And the reason for that is then the activity that is generated from that account will be guaranteed to be coming from this real life person. And I don't know if you know this, Tim, but free speech is deeply tied to anonymity. They are one and the same. Without anonymity, there is no such thing as free speech. That's like the Federalist Papers were published anonymously. I don't know if you know that. And yes, it can be abused. Yes, it does have problems, like I'm aware. But that's really, I think, where it's headed towards. It's like, once this horrible calamity, whether it be a right-wing terrorist attack or some kind of domestic event, that I think will usher in, a new internet where you have to be re-identified by who you are in real life.
That wouldn't bother me. Honestly, it would not, because there are so many anonymous people out there who make the internet terrible. All the spammers, all these disingenuous types. I mean, this channel, we're the ones who doxed one of the main Q droppers in the whole Q thing. Their power comes from being anonymous and misrepresenting themselves. I just want transparency. So I'm totally fine with people being accountable for what they say. And if you don't want to give up your name, you don't have to be anonymous. Be pseudo-anonymous. Get a pseudonym. Same thing.
Well, that's what I'm explaining, is that, like, I think in the future, to be able to participate in big sites, I don't believe this is going to be like the entire internet, but I do know one of the reasons why my YouTube channel was banned is because I never verified. And they said, like, you can verify by scanning your government ID or by sending a video with your smartphone of your face and stuff. And I was like, no, I'm never going to do that. I had my YouTube account for 17 years. 17 years, and it never, right? But it got banned because it claimed my channel was spam and deceptive practices. And I was like, what? So this is, I think, what we're headed towards with the, you'll have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. So to be able to get on these big platforms or whatever it is in the future, they will self-enforce verification, biometric verification. And yeah, I get that anonymity certainly enables spammers, anonymous trolls, all these things, but it is like, it's just necessary. It's one of the aspects of the internet. And I really think that's what will be the end product of Disease X.
Could be. I've always found that, like, I differ on this in that I think the anonymous thing is a way to be unaccountable, and I'm all for accountability. And I think that the anonymous thing is maybe in some places, but I don't know, maybe it's a concern. I just don't have any illusion that anything we're doing is really anonymous or private. I mean, we recently learned that Netflix had access to all of our Facebook DMs and our browser history. So I don't operate under the presumption that there is any privacy anymore.
Well, I think you should, because I can speak about this from, I guess a perspective of some authority, that I'll tell you that's actually a psyop. The Edward Snowden character and that entire psyop, which had an Oliver Stone film, by the way, made about it, it is exactly that. It's a psyop to scare people into thinking the government knows more about you than they actually do. I want you to know, in the new era we live in, data is more valuable than money, especially in the machine learning future that we're headed towards. And your personal information is valuable. Okay, do not give that. And corporations, these individual companies, they're very stingy with their data, right? They will only participate if they get a subpoena or if they have to legally hand over the data. They don't just give it over. And I'm sure with the Facebook Netflix example, I'm sure that was a massive purchase on Netflix part. Like, they must have, and you know that companies like Google, Facebook, Meta, and some of Microsoft services, these are data companies, right? So they make their money through selling data. And in that sense, yeah, but if you never provide real information, then they're selling garbage data. But so many people have been tricked into voluntarily giving that information. And I do not want to merge with the screen. I have a meat space life where I do stuff in real life, and I have like a cyberspace life where I just, entertain and discuss ideas that I wouldn't normally entertain in, a social space in real life, because free association is a lot easier in
Oh, sure,
cyberspace when
sure.
you're anonymous.
You don't want a potential employer to look at your Twitter feed. Like that's understandable. And yeah, people need to safeguard their privacy for those reasons. And also stalkers. I would advise people never to hype up their birthday, like, oh, it's my birthday, and tweet about it, because I know from experience that that information can open up all kinds of stuff. Because I've been a stalker myself. I've had stalkers, and the way I deal with them is I find out everything about them, and the smallest minutia, little detail that you didn't think means anything, can actually open up a lot of stuff. One person, for example, the Q person we talk about, he hides himself online for years. He was completely anonymous. You know what gave him away? His mom's Facebook account. So it's like you could hide behind all these things. You can be a bunker. You can be off the ground. You're totally hidden. But then somebody in your family said something to you and you responded to it or you liked it. And now your whole thing's unraveled. And I've had that happen many times. That's what I mean, that privacy is kind of ephemeral. It's kind of impossible today. Chances are we've already put all the clues out there to be found by anybody.
Especially now with these, models that are dedicated to parsing huge volumes of web pages by compressing it into vectorized representation. They'll be able to search it more efficiently. That I agree. But if someone perhaps I feel like the younger generation has been groomed or taught to, yeah, you know what, everything's already out there. Just put all your information. Who cares, right? I'm like, no, that's valuable information. It's valuable data. At the bare minimum, if you don't care about, who you really are, if people know, at least don't give that to corporations, right? So you can have your entire browsing history, but it's associated with meme lord 420, right? That's fine. But when you start then liking your university or your family's tweets and stuff, now you're making that web that it can be associated. But it's good OPSEC, right? I get that. And that's where I really think that the final merging of the offline and the online will be this persistent biometric ID. That's where I see it heading. And I know that you are like, who cares? I don't know. I feel like I come from an older era of the internet where I remember the trends. I guess from my age range, I remember early internet where it's like, never use your real name online, never do that. And then slowly within my lifetime, people are like, oh, post everything on Facebook. It's like it just happened over time. And now people have had screenshots of YouTube signing up and they say, do not use your real name. And then once it was acquired by Google, it was like, please give us your real name, your phone number, and all this stuff. And they're combating spam, right?
We are in a total self-surveillance society. It's like 1984, but voluntarily. Orwell did not predict this.
Yeah, that's the main thing, because even the trying to find out who someone is, it comes from publicly available information that was posted online. That's why it's like you see these big leaks and stuff. And it's like these were either the other end of a DM, meaning the other person leaked it, or it was publicly posted, right? Hacking required, right? So a lot of the information is just already out there, but if you're careful about it to know, and I think we're heading to a time where they're going to want that persistent matching, because it's very useful for employers, for government and everything, if you could just type in someone's name and have everything about them, and not have a separate version of yourself that's partitioned. But that's a big discussion, so sorry, I don't want to keep your show going for so long.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's an interesting take on it. At this point, yeah, I think it's I think it's over. I think privacy has been, culturally, we've moved away from this idea of privacy to where now everything is commodified, made public. The idea of keeping stuff from the public, having a private life, is kind of like archaic now. And you're right, it's a cultural thing. They've shifted it. And
Can I say,
yeah, like you can sell your private life, reality TV. Like people will pay to see what's generally private.
Can I say one other thing I just remembered about this movement towards total union with the screen by biometric verification? I think AI will play a huge role in that narrative, because as multimodal generative AI is coming about, if you have all this publicly accessible data, like pictures or videos of someone, their voice, these streams, by the way, could easily be scraped and be used to generate a bot that speaks exactly like you or me. In the future, they will then say, you don't know if you're talking to a real person. So we need a universal authentication, biometric authentication that this message was posted by a person, not an AI pretending to be them.
Well, you still do have all the legal protections against impersonation and against the use of your image and likeness for commerce, for publicity that is not with your authorization. You still do have all the essentially trademark protections that are there. But it is true. There are people I know. In fact, there's this one channel that I follow. She's a psychiatrist. And at one point I noticed, wait a minute, sometimes she looks a little fake. And what I realized is some of her content is AI generated based on her voice and her likeness, and it is her content, but it's almost indistinguishable from her own videos. So she could pretty much continue the same age and never change and just put out videos into perpetuity without ever having to get in front of the camera ever again. And then I've also found people will scrape the content from specialized topics and then recreate it as a faceless channel and have it reworded by ChatGPT. So I can see content theft is huge and it's monetizable and it's a business model for some people. There are people who will look for a niche that's generating traffic and they will literally use AI and say, recreate this, but make it a little bit different. And then they will reproduce it with a faceless channel and there's nothing that can be done. Like somebody could scrape and farm this content and reproduce it better than me and outcompete me. I mean, maybe not this because it's kind of specialized, but in general, yes, this is a thing that's already happening and it's only getting better.
And that's the main thing about voluntary, what's it called? I'm looking for voluntary participation in such a system is that I don't believe there's going to be any law requiring people to do biometric authentication. It'll be through the narratives, through these psyops, like maybe the future terrorist attack, maybe it'll be able to be executed because of a malicious use of AI or something like that, right? So people will naturally, of their own accord, be doing it. We noticed this with the poke, right? There was never any law passed. It was a mandate, which is gratuitously observed. And the people voluntarily got it. And their companies, repeat that to people. Data is the new oil. Like it's
monkeys. That's exactly the story in 28 Days Later. You know, it's all about the...
Yep.
And I saw a trailer for 28 Years Later, by the way. And, you know, there's a trailer for something else called The Thunderbolts, some Marvel comic universe production that's coming out soon. And the opening scene in the trailer was a bunch of stuff falling from the sky. So space junk Armageddon seems to be indicated by that. But I saw the 28 Years Later one, a zombie movie. So the timing of it's just interesting anyway. But yeah, the theme of it was that they are infecting us with mind viruses that cause us to be violent, but that they were abusing monkeys. And then the Elon Musk thing ties into this neatly, and it correlates with his disease X, how Twitter X has become a conduit for all the mind viruses that are going to turn people into the rage monkeys.
There's actually a still from 28 Days Later where a monkey is like seated with the wires hooked up in the back of its head looking at a screen. And I took a screen cap of that and then put it next to the Neuralink demo. And I was like, you see, that means it's fake. I was like, that means the Neuralink demo is fake. I think that's a heuristic more people should adopt. For example, even like the chemtrails thing, like Snowpiercer, that's the plot of Snowpiercer, is that they did too much geoengineering aerosol spraying, and that's what caused an ice age. So I'm like, okay, that means that's fake. Like,
yeah, that's the alt eschatology. You got the mainstream eschatology of climate change. Alt eschatology is stratospheric aerosol injections. Bill Gates blocks the sun.
For sure. But anyway, yeah, thanks for taking my call and bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you very much for the call. Everyone, that's LeoFriend. You can get his articles at Mindwar.page.
For sure. But anyway, yeah, thanks for taking my call and bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you very much for the call. Everyone, that's LeoFriend. You can get his articles at Mindwar.page. Mindwar.page. But my experience with AI is largely around e-commerce. I took a bunch of tutorials. I was binge watching, just looking into the different possibilities, what can be done. And I have noted that there's a tendency in Trutherville to look at AI as a threat, potentially a demon, or something that's going to take over in some bad way. And I looked into it, and the more I look into it, the more it's demystified, but the more I'm like looking at it as significantly transformative, but in a good way, a major leveling of the playing field. But the unintended consequences, the unexpected things are some of the more interesting, like how people are indeed able to create content by theft, but it's untraceable. Remixing people's content, no attribution, having it rewritten, it's essentially plagiarism. But on the bright side, because I've been thinking this could be a problem when it comes to, like, let's say Kindle, Amazon's ebook company. A lot of people who aren't even writers can just go to AI and say, hey, this is a book that I like. Can you give me a similar structure and rewrite it? So they're making their own books. They're getting their covers made with AI, ChatGPT, and they're publishing them. And they're being told by people on YouTube, yeah, create books with AI and publish them and get rich. The thing with this is that Amazon's quality control is already filtering out generic AI created content. If you create that stuff, your channel is associated with spam, it's not promoted, and their algorithm favors original content. So originality will have a competitive advantage, a far more competitive advantage than all of this slick generic stuff. And readers know the difference. And readers are the ones buying books. Challenger Hoax says, who the hell is buying books? I hear that a lot. Amazon Kindle is growing 16% a year or more. It's a $29 billion industry. It's growing exponentially. There are more readers than ever before. More digital pages are read now every day than paper. So yeah, everybody's reading. Well, maybe not you, but it's growing, and a lot of it's not just fiction. I mean, nonfiction is actually kind of, I think, more popular. I'm not sure specifically the stats, but a lot of what sells are nonfiction, information products. But yeah, I do make AI books. Somebody asked me, Norbu says, why aren't you making AI books? I do. I've done a few. And it doesn't really write for you unless you're trying to create generic stuff. But what it can do is that it can serve as an editor. So you could write 50,000 words on a subject or even fiction, and you just give it to Grok and say, Grok, review this. Tell me what needs to be improved. What are the flaws? Where am I inconsistent? And do I have any other weaknesses? And it will give you a breakdown that you'd have to pay a professional editor to do. And there'd be a lot of time involved because they'd have to read it to give you a critique. But you can do it with Grok. So AI is useful if you're writing in general. Does it write for you? Yeah, it kind of can, but you have to proofread it. It has flaws here and there, but as long as you take the content that it gives you and you feed it back and ask it to review it, you can make it work. But is it bereft of creativity? Well, no, there still has to be the ideas. So it's not really writing for you 100%, although it's almost there, and it's going to get there. It's inevitable. But will it be good is the final question. I've tried it. Like I said, it has limitations, but it's kind of useless talking about them. It's like, well, it can only do this many chapters at a time before it starts becoming a word salad or it becomes too repetitive. But these are bugs that are being worked out all the time. One of the uses I found for it is I take an old manuscript and I ask it, what would you do to improve it? You could even take something you've written. Maybe you write a journal. Like, I went here today, I did this today. You take that journal, give it to the AI and say, hey, rewrite it from a different perspective. A third person narrative or whatever you want to do. But it still does require creativity. You can create the facsimile of a book. It'll put the words in there. It'll be structured, but will it be aesthetic? Are we at the point where people can't tell? All right. I think I've covered most of our notes here. I think the main point, though, tonight was from that Reddit article, the fact that they've deployed bots to change people's opinions, because we're often talking about influence agents, controlled opposition, who are just there spamming the same bad ideas to keep people on the same sheet. Well, that's been automated. And I've done it myself. I have a bot. One of my bots just got banned off of Twitter. They flagged it for terms of service violations, but it had a good run. And I was actually breaking the rules. I was going to see how far can this go. And the way it worked was anytime somebody mentioned chemtrails in hashtags, my bot would go respond. And then it would follow 10 of their followers and then 3 days later unfollow. But it had this process I'd set up to essentially counteract spam with good information and try to lead them to my site. That's kind of what I see going on anyway. That's kind of the game here, where I think they're realizing, I think the PSYOP entertainment complex can get rid of human agents. They can get rid of human crisis actors and just replace it with CGI. Vanden says, Cillian Murphy is in 28 Days Later and the next 2 films, and he was in Batman, Dark Knight, and Oppenheimer. Okay, I'll have to look into that particular character. The directors of these films, the Nolans, are significant content producers for the PSYOP entertainment complex. Jungle Jim says, like the video. Appreciate that. And if you want the archives, go to ips.monster. And at ips.monster, you'll get archives, you'll get newsletters and live stream notifications. And let me see if I can find the website, autohoax.com. I want to get a count right now. So right now we have 150 people in the video chat. And that's just YouTube, Odyssey, and Twitter. And then let me take us on over to autohoax.com, which is the hoax report. And the hoax report is like the Drudge report for the off-world stage. And if you create content from this perspective, media deconstruction, send me a message. Email me at timosmond007@gmail.com, and I will take your blog or your YouTube feed and I'll put it on the hoax report. It's all dynamic content. So we have 37 people listening at Conspiratainment Radio, at Radio King, TuneIn, and also at the bottom of the page, because right here it's a list of anybody creating content in this field. But at the very bottom, you can find our PSYOP trading cards. And I've added a few more. You want to take a look at those. My intention is to have 20 completed by the end of the month. So I'll post the rest of them probably tomorrow. So let's see what we have here. If you go to autohoax.com, the hoax report, again, you have the live link to listen here or also at the Fakeologist show. We have forum posts. Does predictive programming exist? Elite gender inversion. That's from Fakeologist. They seem to focus on that quite a bit. Here's a link to Jaron on THC. And I believe that's provided by johnlebon.com. It's all relevant. It's all timely. So if you go to autohoax.com, you can find all of the latest content from people in our side of things. I'm just going through. Here's some links from the caller. Leo called in. Prophets of Baal. Foreshadowing, not prophecy. That's good. I haven't read this one. Foreshadowing, not prophecy. The Hollywood directors are propagandists, not prophets. He says, if you've ever wondered why fictional movies, books, music, video games often foretell future news and cultural shifts in subtle and uncanny ways, you've come to the right place. Most will simply write it off as eerie coincidence. The more conspiratorial-minded will call it revelation of the method. Neither is valid, as both fail to account for media fakery and the mind war we've all been drafted into. That's a great intro to the concept of the world stage and how both sides are wrong All right, this has been great. I'm going to go ahead and share a link to this below. It's Mindwar.page. If you haven't been there, I just found the link through autohoax.com. So like I said, the hoax report is a hub. You go there, anybody who's anyone in this arena, off-world stage, they're going to be featured there. And if you're not featured there yet, you should be. A Bach Precision, for example, I'll have to get your YouTube channel, and I'll just drop that RSS feed onto the hoax report. Because what we're trying to do is build a coalition. We want to create a ecosystem of media skeptics that's separate from everything else. And once we have that, we can scale up. But we have to maintain purity. That's why I call out the Mandela affected and the chemtrail affected, because we have to filter out the bad methodologies, the bad models. It's not about saying that we're right and your beliefs are wrong. It's about we don't want believers. Find out what you know and separate that from what you merely can assert to believe with bad reasons. But quality control is a huge part of what we're doing here, because the mind war is, I think, really predicated on maintaining a status quo of cognitive dissonance and confusion. And I'm not confused. I have to reiterate this. I am not confused. Sometimes there are people who say, well, I don't know. Maybe some people did die. We'll never know. I wasn't there. It's like, well, okay, well then you're conceding that your mind cannot arrive at the truth, that your mind is inadequate to the task. And I don't accept that. I think reasonable people arrive at reasonable conclusions, and that's exactly what we have done. We have filtered out the fallacious rabbit trails that lead people to believe a bunch of alternative propaganda. Nick Fingar says, I just emailed you a NASA-style patch. Okay, excellent. I'm going to get that made as a patch. I have a printer. If you think I should, I'll do it. I'll send you one. Thank you very much, everyone, for the support, by the way. Charles, appreciate it so much. Could not be fully committed to this if I didn't have a fully committed think tank. And I am doubling down on this. For a few months, I kind of veered into art and moving trash and other things I still do on the side, but I really think that this should be my exclusive focus, and it is. And I've been working on what I call the accelerationism, auto hoax accelerationism. And this is going to be facilitated with AI, among other things. But a lot of it revolves around this hub. So the think tank is a hub in itself, but the hoax report, get everybody on the same sheet, build a coalition. And some people are on the fence because they're stuck in Trutherville, they're stuck in Normieville, but they're not open to the idea that they're being lied to on this bigger scale, and they can stay in their boxes. They can keep missing the forest for the trees, but we can't be held back by that. I mean, we have plenty of evidence, and we're building more and more, and the conclusions that we've arrived at have been vindicated time and again. So thanks for the comments and calls. This is Auto Hoax, or GTFO. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow.
Storm.